My name is Daniel and I'm 34 years old. When I was 9 years old, my father left a note on the kitchen table instead of saying goodbye. Just a note, folded once, next to a coffee cup he never finished. The steam from that cup was still rising when my mother found it. She read it standing up, and she never sat back down that whole day. I remember the clock on the stove said 6:42. I remember the sound of the refrigerator humming in the background, because for a long time after that, silence in our house always had that same hum underneath it. I remember thinking, even at 9, if someone really loves you, they tell you the truth to your face. That's the wound I carried. Not the leaving. The silence before it. For 25 years I tried to build a life where nobody could disappear on me without warning. I checked in. I asked questions. I over-explained my own feelings so nobody would ever have to guess what I meant. Friends used to tease me for it. My college roommate called me the guy who reads the room before he's even in it. I laughed it off, but privately, I knew why I was that way. I had spent my whole childhood learning to read the small signs before the big ones arrived, a suitcase left half-packed, a phone call cut short, a chair pushed in too carefully. I promised myself I would never let another person vanish on me in silence again. Then I met Claire. Claire was 31, a pediatric nurse, and the first person who never made me feel like too much. 3 years ago, on our second date, in a small coffee shop with rain tapping against the window, I told her about the note on the kitchen table. She didn't say I'm sorry and change the subject like everyone else did. She just reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "Then I'll always tell you first. Even the hard stuff." She meant it. When her sister was sick, she told me before she told her own mother. When she got passed over for a promotion, she cried in the car with me instead of pretending she was fine, mascara running a little in the dashboard light. Small moments. But they added up to something my whole childhood had been missing, a person who didn't hide behind doors. We got married 14 months ago, in a small backyard ceremony with string lights and folding chairs. Her parents didn't come. Not because of distance, they live 40 minutes from the venue. Her mother, Linda, said the date wasn't convenient. Claire cried for one night, quietly, in the bathroom with the fan running so I wouldn't hear, though I did anyway. Then she never brought it up again. I noticed that about her family early on. Linda liked control more than she liked her daughter's happiness. And Claire's younger brother, Mark, 27, had always been the one Linda protected, no matter what he did, no matter how many times his mistakes landed on someone else's shoulders. 6 weeks ago, everything started to shift. Claire began locking her phone with a new passcode. She started taking calls in the car, in the garage, once even in the backyard at 11:40 p.m. in October, standing outside in a coat, breath fogging in the porch light, one hand pressed against her forehead. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself, you are not your father. Don't assume the worst just because you were hurt once. I held on to that thought like a rope, even on the nights it felt thin. 2 Tuesdays ago, at 8:15 p.m., we were getting ready for bed. Her phone buzzed on the bathroom counter while she was in the shower, water running, the mirror fogged halfway up. I wasn't trying to look. I was setting it down after I moved it to charge it. The screen lit up on its own. A text. From a name saved only as T. It said, *, just friends, I promise. Don't let him find out yet. *. I stood there for what felt like a long time, but the clock on the microwave down the hall said it had only been maybe 40 seconds. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I think some part of me had been waiting for this text for 6 weeks without knowing it. The bathroom fan buzzed overhead. Water dripped somewhere in the pipes. When Claire came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, hair still wet, she saw me holding the phone. Her face went pale in a way I will remember for the rest of my life. The phone buzzed again in my hand. She reached for it too fast, and it slipped, hers, not mine, clattered onto the tile floor, screen cracking in one long line across the glass. "Daniel, it's not what you think," she said. I didn't raise my voice. I want to be clear about that, because for years I promised myself I would never become a man who yells the way fear yells. I just said, then tell me what it is. Right now. Before I think anything at all. Here's what I didn't say that night, because I already had it, quietly, for 3 weeks. T was Theo. Theo was Claire's coworker, yes, but Theo was also the hospital's benefits coordinator, and 3 weeks earlier, on a Thursday afternoon, Claire had come to me with an idea, hesitant, choosing her words carefully. Her father had been quietly diagnosed with early-stage heart disease, something Linda didn't want anyone in the family to know, especially not Mark, who was already spiraling financially and would use it as leverage for money the moment he sensed weakness. Claire had been secretly helping her father set up a private long-term care fund through the hospital's employee assistance program, using Theo's help, behind her mother's back, so Linda couldn't touch it or spin it into another family controversy. Don't let him find out yet wasn't about me. It was about her father. About Mark. About Linda. I had actually seen the paperwork 3 weeks before that night. Claire had left a folder open on the kitchen table, the same kind of table where I once watched my mother read a goodbye note. This time, it held a durable power of attorney form with her father's signature and Claire listed as an emergency contact. I hadn't said anything to her yet. I wanted her to tell me herself, in her own time, the way she'd promised on our second date. I didn't want to force it out of her. That was my one quiet fear through all of this, that if I pushed, I'd become the kind of person who demands the truth instead of earning it, and I would lose the very thing that made Claire different from everyone I'd grown up with. So when she stood there, dripping, scared, holding a cracked phone, I already knew. But I let her tell me anyway. My dad has a heart condition, she said, voice shaking, sitting down slowly on the edge of the tub. I've been helping him set up money so my mom can't control it, so Mark can't guilt him out of it. Theo's been helping me file it quietly at work. I didn't want you to worry, and I didn't want my mom finding out before it was final. I should have told you the second it started. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm so sorry. 2 days later, at her parents' house, everything came out into the open, not by my doing, but because Linda had gone through her husband's mail and found a copy of the paperwork herself. Sunday dinner. 8 people at the table, Claire's parents, Mark and his girlfriend, Claire's aunt visiting from out of state, and us. The smell of roast chicken filled the room. Linda slammed the folder down next to the mashed potatoes like it was a weapon, the sound sharp enough that Claire's aunt flinched and set her glass down too fast, water sloshing over the rim. You went behind my back, Linda said to Claire, voice sharp as glass. You made decisions about this family without me. The room went quiet. Mark shifted in his seat, suddenly very interested in his plate. Claire's aunt set her fork down slowly, glancing between mother and daughter like she was watching something she couldn't stop. Claire's father stared at the tablecloth, his jaw tight, hands folded like he was bracing for something. Claire didn't raise her voice. She looked at her mother and said, calm, steady, this is not a mistake. It has been mine and Dad's decision for 3 weeks. I did it because every time money comes up in this family, it becomes a weapon instead of a plan. I wanted him protected before anyone could turn his health into a fight. Linda opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in the years I'd known her, she had nothing sharp to say. Claire's father, sitting at the head of the table, reached over and quietly took Claire's hand. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. His eyes said what his words couldn't. Claire's aunt exhaled, quiet relief crossing her face, like she'd been waiting years for someone to finally say this out loud. Mark mumbled something about not being trusted, and Claire turned to him, gentle but firm. This was never about trust, Mark. It was about Dad having something that's just his, for once. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was quieter than that, the kind of silence that means something finally landed the way it should. In the weeks after, Linda didn't apologize outright, but she stopped bringing up money at every family gathering. Claire's father started coming to Sunday dinners looking lighter, like a weight had been shifted off him and onto paper where it belonged. Claire set one boundary with her mother: no more discussing family finances at the dinner table, ever again, and she said it plainly, without cruelty, just clarity. Linda agreed. She didn't have much choice, and for once, she didn't argue. As for me and Claire, we sat down together 3 nights after that dinner, at our own kitchen table, and she told me everything from the beginning, in order, the way she'd always promised she would. I told her about seeing the folder 3 weeks earlier, about choosing to wait instead of confronting her. She cried, not out of guilt this time, but relief. She said that I hadn't turned her secret-keeping into a weapon of my own. A few months later, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, I found Claire in the kitchen making coffee, sunlight coming through the window, steam rising off 2 mugs, the smell of toast in the air. Her phone sat face up on the counter, unlocked, no passcode at all. She caught me looking and smiled. "I don't need to hide anything from you," she said. "I never really did. I was just scared of my mother more than I trusted you." It was such a small thing, an unlocked phone on a kitchen counter, but for me, it undid 25 years of watching for goodbye notes. If you've ever sat in a room where silence felt safer than the truth, I understand that more than you know. I spent my whole life believing that people who loved me would eventually disappear without warning, the way my father did. But I learned something in that bathroom, in that dinner, in that kitchen: real love isn't the absence of secrets. It's what happens after the secret comes out, whether someone stays calm, stays honest, and stays. You don't have to yell to be strong. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stand still, ask one honest question, and wait for the truth to catch up to you. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever waited quietly for someone to trust you with the truth, hit subscribe. Every story here is for someone who needed to hear it.